Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast, where empathy meets action in the world of leadership. Your host, Gino Degregori, engages with innovators and seasoned professionals from diverse sectors, all demonstrating the power of leading with kindness. And now, your host, Gino Degregori.
Today's guest spent more than a decade in some of the most mission-intense environments in the world, the U.S. intelligence community. And what she learned is this: the leaders who deliver mission value aren't the ones who choose between head and heart. They're the ones who refuse to choose. This conversation is about what it actually looks like to lead with both. Hi, I'm Gino Degregori, and welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast. Today, I'm joined with Marion Kennedy. Marion is the founder and CEO of Root and Regards, a leadership advisory she launched in 2024 to champion GovCon leaders and organizations as they deliver mission value with and through the people who matter. Her path is remarkable. She began her intelligence career as a Department of Army civilian, the U.S. Army Night Vision Lab. From then, she went into INSCOM, or that was INSCOM, I think. And then she went into the private sector, and as a thought leader alongside with Dr. Mark Lowenthal and Mark Roth, she helped establish the National Intelligence Priorities Framework, which is interesting, framework that is still being used nowadays. From there, she went on to lead P&L, that's profit and loss, for customer delivery, operational and growth, and several organizations supporting many agencies in the intel space. And across all of it, she has hired and led, mentored exceptional and diverse talent. I'm super excited to have you on the podcast here, Marion. Welcome to the show. And now that I've shared a little bit about your background, I would love for you to tell our audience a little bit more about you and how you got this far.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm super thrilled to be here and honored to be your guest today. Leadership has been a lifelong passion of mine from very, very early on in my career before I knew anything about anything. Watching other leaders, whether modeling their behavior or not. But as you've already said, I've spent my entire career supporting the intelligence community and national security, both in the federal government, but most of my experience has been in the private sector. And I've had increasing responsibility over my career, starting as an individual contributor at Citrus Corporation and spent 18 years there. And I've been in Fortune 500 business, startup business, small, mid-size, so everything in between. And as you've already mentioned, I've really had the privilege to work with exceptional talent across all of the agencies and just a diverse group of just wonderful, wonderful people that I have felt through my career as, again, my responsibility is to care for them, to champion them throughout their career. And again, kind of just from a servant leader perspective, which has, again, just carries today and what, focused on from a root and regard perspective and really championing others' success.
I love it. And I love the regard, which we'll talk a little bit more about here in a second. And, really congratulations in all your success and the impact that you've made in people's lives along the way in your career. So I remember kind of meeting you, I think 3 years ago at a Geo event. And now, fast forward 3, I just came back from Geo event.
Right.
Had some great conversations there and really was excited to have this conversation with you. But before we dive into the meat of the conversation here, I would love to ask the first question that I ask all my guests here. What does being a kind leader mean to you?
Kind leader means caring with conviction, or as I like to say it, the term I like to say is giving a damn. So give a damn leadership, which incorporates leading with trust, humility, and showing up authentically and connecting authentically with people that you're serving.
Very nice. Very, I love that kind of the caring with conviction is very important, right? Like really not just checking the box and being like, hey, just lip service essentially, right? But in really giving a damn. I like that. Right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Care about people because people feel the genuine side, right? Like you mentioned the word about authentic, right? You really need to be authentic so people can feel that energy. Like people feel the understanding, the support, right? Not just like you're a number, right? Another number. You say, get it done, be a billable, give me all your billable, 100%.
Right.
And I don't care if something you need to be, it's not about P&L anymore. So I love that description. So how'd you come up with, like, do you have an example or in your life that somebody gave a damn or that, you gave a damn with
Yeah.
any of your previous employees?
Yeah. So I'll start with probably the leader that had the most impact on me was the gentleman that hired me into Site4, Chuck Appleby, Dr. Chuck Appleby. But he demonstrated trust. He hired me. I went to support a contract at the community management staff, which is the predecessor to the OD&I. So I'm really dating myself now. And here I'm, still very early in my career, and he trusted me to support a customer in, an area that I'd not done before. So that was certainly one thing. But, and he and I are still great friends today. He's been a coach to me. He's been a mentor to me. He is championing me throughout my entire career. So I learned a lot of what great leadership looks like from him. So I owe a lot to him from that. And, again, emulating the leaders that we have worked with over our careers and modeling that behavior, right? None of us are perfect. We're human beings, but being intentional about learning and always trying to be better. And so one of the things that I have endeavored to do throughout my career is to give a damn about the people that I'm working with. And to your point, right, the people are not a data point. They are not a transaction. We are not on an assembly line. And I always say, don't forget the people that are generating the revenue, right? So yes, you're running a P&L, you've got goals. And, certainly as you increase in your leadership roles in companies where, you're often measured by your metrics that are more numeric than leadership, you have to balance that, right? Going back to the head and heart. So I have always tried to remember and focus on, again, who are the people in front of you? How can I make sure that I'm serving them, championing them so that they can be successful, creating that great employee experience so that they can create a great customer experience.
Beautiful. Well said. I love that story. And, he sounded like he did give a damn, still gives a damn about you and, and supporting you and growing you in that career as well. So, and then you're doing the same with others. So I appreciate the, not only the great definition of what kind of leader means to you, but also the really good stories there. So you mentioned, I think before we got started recording, root and regard. You also mentioned a little bit in the description here. And from my understanding is, root is just like a tree, right? It's the self-awareness. It's like the root. You need to really have a good foundation to be able to stand up and grow through. Like this is my definition. So I don't know based on what you share. And then regard is to see others, right? It's like the branches and the way things grow around you and how you support all of that. I love that analogy. I love the vision and how that comes out. But tell me a little, how did that name and that framework and the way that you describe it found you, right? How did that come up?
Yeah. From, again, as you very nicely described, right? The root is the core of our own leadership. How do we show up as leaders? And you have to really have an understanding of yourself first, I think, also before you can lead others and continue to grow and be grounded and have that self-awareness. And then the regard is, how are we treating other people? How are we seeing, valuing, hearing other people that we are with? And that's not just from a leadership in an organization, but how are you regarding the cashier in a grocery store?
Right.
Or, anyone that you're encountering, right? How are you treating them as a human being? And so to me, putting these together just made sense to me and it has a lot of meaning to me just in terms of kind of culmination of, my career and the give a damn piece of this as well from a regard standpoint. That's a nicer way to say it. And like even with the root, right? The caring with conviction that's, gives strength and purpose from a leadership perspective.
Right. And what came to me, thank you for describing that. As you were walking me through that, your story on how, the root and regards, I kept picturing like a really thick root in the tree, those trees in California, like grown.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You and I, like having that understanding on who we are. Obviously, I am still, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm still trying to find myself
Of
and
course.
get better every day.
All the time. Yeah.
But the leaders that are not in tune or in alignment or even understand who I kept picturing like a tiny tree, right? Like they can't really, right? It tries to hold so much. It's just, I really like how you came up with that. And then the regards portion of is like, I see you as when you're talking to people, right? People want to be heard. People want to be seen. People want to be appreciated, want to be regarded into. What are they doing for us, right? And I think I might have shared some of the framework and philosophy that I'm putting together with Kind Leader. I have this framework called CARES, right? And CARES, which I'm going to be sharing that a little bit more later. But a lot of the stuff that you're talking about identifies with, starts with who you are, clarity on who am I? Because if we don't know who we are as leaders, not even just as leaders, but as individuals, we're not going to be able to help others. Right. So how'd you come up with like the as you were thinking, that's a very important point to understand when you're talking about leadership. So can you expand on that? Like how you came up with that and then how you're seeing it with other leaders out there?
Yeah. Well, I think first, if you understand where your strengths are, your innate talents, your gifts, you're then also able to see that in other people. And I think as leaders, it is our responsibility, again, from the regard standpoint as well, is what are the gifts and the talents of your team members? And how can you use those, if you're engaged and you care enough to learn about what their talents are and their strengths are, you're, in a better position to align them to opportunities that fulfill them versus putting them in a box or, they're unhappy in a particular role, that sort of thing. So again, knowing, if I know, hey, I'm really not great at XYZ, whatever it is, I want to make sure that I bring people on my team that are great at those things that I'm not. But I have to know that about myself first.
Right.
So that's part of that, really understanding yourself.
Yeah, and that's critical, right? Because again, I know it felt like I already described it, but one thing that came up just now is if we don't only understand ourselves, how can we expect to understand our people too, right? And their strengths and weaknesses. And one thing that I say is, as a servant leader, you mentioned already, it's like it's our job to ask our folks, what can I do for you to help you in your career, to help you in what you want to do or what need to do? Because if you focus that, then they'll be not only committed to us, they'll do a better job with our customers, right? And then we put them in a situation where they're going to succeed and not fail or set them up for failure, essentially. As many times it's like, all right, we have to bring in this person to deliver the mission and we got to bring that back. And we don't truly understand the full dynamics. And sometimes we get lucky and the person works. Sometimes it goes the other direction. And, and if we don't really pay attention to understanding our people, we're going to lose.
Right. And, a kind leader also can recognize perhaps if there's a mismatch with, and it doesn't mean that, and I've done this throughout my career. If I've noticed that perhaps somebody wasn't really flourishing in a particular role, give them an opportunity in a different role. And then you'd be amazed at, then they're doing great. But don't dismiss somebody because they are not succeeding in your way of thinking, or perhaps, customers not happy. I think too often we dismiss people and discard them without really then understanding, okay, well, maybe this just isn't the right fit to their skill set or, what using their talent. So let's give them another opportunity to do that.
Beautiful. She started talking about the Intel space, right? I mean, that's really think about it. It's a very mission critical environment, right? Where we don't get it right.
That's right.
Our stake, right? I mean, we have to get this right. So the pressure, the intensity, put all those adjectives there that describe that world. How were you able to truly lead the talent across all those agencies, across all those mission areas, and be able to balance that? Because, it's hard, right? It really is hard. I would love for you to explain, give me some examples of, with you as a leader, and how were you able to navigate with a demanding customer, demanding mission?
Yeah, I think, again, it's understanding your team members, right? Knowing, one is being very clear up front with expectations, like just even, as you do in your business, right? You're placing people on site. One individual may fit culturally with one agency and may not with another, or with a customer right? And so it's one, understanding very clearly what your customer needs, really listening deeply to, because again, right, from a mission standpoint, and we're really making sure that we're focused on meeting their outcomes. So you have to align the right people to that. Right. So not, I used to spend a lot of time with my customers to make sure that I'm really understanding what they need, so then I could go find, me or others, recruiters can find the right fit. And sometimes I would say to my customers, it might take me a little bit longer. Trust me, we're going to get you the right fit. And when you consistently deliver that and people are successful in those customer environments, you don't have a lot of turnover. But I think making sure you understand up front what their requirements are, then matching that skill set and being upfront with people in the beginning, also with expectations. So if you have a hard customer environment, be clear about that with those people before they come in. So they're, be fully transparent so they know what they're walking into, and also to, have them not take it personally if, customers having a bad day, because I also say, have empathy for your customer. Like, you don't know what's going on in their environment too. So I would say that is probably how I've navigated a lot of that throughout my career.
Beautiful. I mean, and it's definitely a balancing act. I think you might have even mentioned, like, in your notes or when we talk coalesce, right? And but before we go into that, I do want like an example, put you a little bit on the spot here. I don't need names or anything like that, but a specific moment, because we talked about head and heart. I mean, we really didn't dive into it too much, right? But when we're talking about heart, it's taking care of the people. When we're talking head, you talk about the drive, the numbers and what things. I love the two kind of modes there that are kind of, they need to be part of the conversation, right? But I'm sure you've watched leaders out there that have delivered to the mission with all head and no heart. What happened there? Like, what was your experience?
Well, it doesn't create for a very good employee experience, number one, which then will translate to a not so great customer experience, because you can't separate the two in my mind. So ultimately, that is another impact that happens. But you also will have higher turnover. People are not going to be motivated to give their best if everything is, again, when you are treated like a transaction versus a human being.
Right.
And we've known leaders who are promoted and into increasing areas of responsibility because they're, meeting the numbers. And again, nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. We all want to be part of a growing company.
Right.
And so that is critically important. So you have to, support the mission, make sure the company is successful, because if it's not successful, then you can't create opportunities for your people. So that's why you need to coalesce both head and heart. So you're meeting the mission, you're meeting your financial commitments, the contractual commitments, but you can also do it in a way that is taking care of people along the way, so that you have better retention, both on the customer side and the people side of the business. And then people feel like, I want to be here.
Yeah. And the inverse though, right? So it's just if it's just all head and no heart, we're going to be right. But what if it's all heart and no head? How does that fail too?
Yeah. Well, then, if it's all heart and you're not focused on the business side of what we're here to do, then you're also not going to perhaps meet the customer demands. You're not going to meet company financial metrics and growth people want to be part of a successful company.
Yeah.
Also, you've got to balance that as well to make sure that you're continuing to thrive as a business so that you create opportunities for people so that they can develop in their career. And maybe they don't want to stay in that particular area and job for the next 15 years, right?
Right.
That they want to see opportunities to grow. And that can only happen when you are building a thriving business. And otherwise, we'll be out of business.
Right. I love the coalescing, like the perspective of that, because you cannot just have the heart and you cannot just have the head. You have to have both.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure in order to be successful, because that was my challenge initially when I was putting together Kind Leader. I was like, people are like, what kind? Well, this person is nice. And, they're going to, when it comes to hard conversations or prickly conversations, they're going to avoid it, right? So there was a lot of that from my perspective. And then when I started talking with more and more people about, no, Kind Leader is about also having the accountability, right?
Right.
And I also say when I describe things, it's moving from the ego mind, right? Or the head to making decisions from the heart. But what you just gave me was it can't just be one or the other. It has to, I guess from my perspective is lead with the heart, but balance it with the head, right?
That's right.
With the mind to make sure that some of these conversations, some of these decisions are in alignment to what you want to do as an individual, as a company, as a department head, whatever it is, right? Because you really need that balancing. And it is tough. Well, what do you think about that? Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, right, being a give a damn leader, a kind leader, you can have tough conversations. It does not mean that those things don't come up either. I always felt it important to, be transparent about here are our financial goals and make sure people understand, like, here's what we're trying to do. Where do you want to grow, right? Have them participate in those growth conversations so that it's not just top down. It is bottom up. So they have a voice in, well, do you want to go support this customer, or here's a mission we want to support? How do we go create that together? So there's a co-creation and a level of transparency so that, your team understands also, here's what we need to do,
right?
But make it, again, you're delivering mission value.
Yeah. Ooh,
it's right. It's about the mission value you're delivering, and growth is not a dirty word at all. And I'd rather have us support the customer and delivering that mission value and finding ways to continue to do that
absolutely.
As well. So,
and it's definitely the culture too, right, that we're building within the organization. Because as you know, I run a consulting firm supporting the government and other verticals as well. But we do have folks that are inside the skiffs or inside buildings, right, that embedded with the customers, removed from Bravo's day-to-day and culture, right, and all that stuff, right? So the pressure to be transactional almost, right, sometimes in that world where as a CEO point of view or a leader driving the P&L, it's like deliver, be billable, right? And it's like, and it's hard because all they see you is, I'm doing my work. I'm hearing like, why am I not billing 80, 90% or whatever that is, right?
Yeah, right.
And that, or do your timesheets, right? Why aren't you doing your timesheets, right? It has to be more than just that, right? And in order for us to not lose the people, right? Because if we then lose the people, we lose essentially the customer, the support, the mission.
Right.
And then, you just got me thinking, because it's really important for us to understand in our audience there, for those leaders listening right now, who are drowning in that delivery pressure, right? Especially in the intelligence or DoD or whatever, in the government. It's like, what's the smallest move they can make this week to bring heart back to some of the things that they do? Right? Because it's really hard. I mean, you've run a lot of these organizations, and would you say, how do you keep that culture of your organization with people that are embedded with the customer?
Yeah, like the going native.
Yes, right.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is hard, right? Because certainly when, we are supporting the Intel mission and customers day to day, you've got to find ways to create an identity and a sense of belonging with the company, in addition to the belonging and sense of identity that people have with the customer, right? We're very proud of the support we're providing to our customers, but it's also making sure there's a tether in a positive way to the company as well. And so that also gets to being visible and accessible as a leader, is one of my give a damn principles, is be accessible. It is, you're not too busy for anyone. And don't use busyness as an excuse to engage with people. So regardless if you're a team leader, a business unit leader, a executive vice president, obviously, you're not going to have a touch point every single day, but be mindful of those touch points so that people do feel like, she cares about me. He cares about me. They're asking. One of the things that, regardless of the role that I've been in my career, one of my first priorities was always to meet one-on-one with everybody on the team.
Really? Okay.
Even if I was, we had a reorganization and a new group came over, I would meet one-on-one, or I'd go into a new company, I would meet one-on-one with everyone, which took people aback a bit.
Yeah.
And so they're like, why is the senior vice president wanting to meet with me?
Right.
And the reason I want to meet with people is, one, it's probably going to be one of the few times that I can in the beginning, right, before you get completely swamped. But also it gives you a really great sense of the temperature. And also I can get to know people. Right. So that was very important to me. And then continuing to have levels of engagement is really critical, to your point of making sure day-to-day folks feel that they are, they're belonging to your company and something bigger that you all are trying to build.
Exactly. No, I love that. Thank you for walking us through that. And I think the trust, right, by you taking the time and investing your time in meeting one-on-one, it does take time, depending, if you have 50, 100, 150 people or more, right?
Yeah.
How do you find that time to do that? Well, it's very important because that allows you to make the connection, maybe share a little bit about your culture, how you run things, how you do things, and essentially talk about the root and regard, right? In a way where I'm here for you in a way, right?
Yeah. I mean, one question I would always put people at ease when I was, and I would also go to them. Yeah. I wouldn't have, come to corporate, right? I would go to where they worked on site. Right. But one of my questions that I would ask everybody is, what are your expectations of me as a leader?
That's a good one.
Right. So I would know, like, well, what do you expect of me? And most people were surprised. They may not have been asked that question ever before, so they didn't know how to answer it.
Right.
But I wanted to know, and then certainly do my best to make sure I'm meeting those expectations or exceeding those expectations.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I've tried personally, right? And I think it's a little bit, I don't want to say it's a little bit different, but I think the intimidation of, being the owner or being the CEO, right? Where I have tried and I have done, and I still do meet with people one-on-one. And I say very transparently, I am accessible, ping me anytime you want. But when it comes to that, right, when somebody wants to take the next step to actually send a note to me, it stopped. Like they really don't want to, right? It's hard.
I think that to encourage that engagement as well, it's like, yes, you're very busy as a CEO running your company and letting people know that it's okay.
Right.
I want to hear from you.
Right.
I'm not too busy. I may not get to you in 10 minutes, but, you matter.
Yeah.
And it's important.
Absolutely. One thing that I started doing to have that virtual door open, I either send a text message, a Teams message, or sometimes just a simple email, right, to their low side, especially the people on the intelligence community where they, it's like, oh, okay, well, thanks. Letting them know that I'm here. If there's anything, just saying hello, blah, 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 whatever. That allows that trust, not necessarily full trust, but at least that trust that there is an opening there for them, like a branch that they can kind of grab onto and open the door fully, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
Because it's important, right? It's important that, again, I love the regard part. Like, they are part of the team. They are value a team member, not just because of the work that they're doing, but the individual contribution that builds the company as a whole, right? That they could provide ideas, things that, we can't do it without them.
Well, and they represent your brand.
Right. Exactly.
Also, right? I mean, so every person is representing, your company as well. So
Absolutely. And even after they depart, like let's say they find other things,
Mhm.
I think you mentioned that being a champion after someone
Champion.
leaves is very important too, because it can't just be, all right, you're gone, you're dead to me. I will not talk
That's
to
right.
you.
That's right.
You can't do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a small world, no matter what.
Absolutely.
Like I
Yeah.
always either make a call, right, or go on site and say, hey, I know this is your last day or this is your last week, and I say, look, I appreciate everything you've done. Whether it's been like a couple, maybe 6 months has been the shortest, but it's been
Mhm.
or a couple years. We thank you. I thank
Right.
you for
That's
being
right.
here, and the door is wide open in the
That's
future.
right.
If you ever
That's
want to come back, and things align properly, let's talk.
Mhm.
Let's
Yeah.
continue the
Yeah.
conversation.
Absolutely. That's really important. I mean, I still stay connected with people that I've worked with 20 plus years ago as well. And, if they have any need, they know, oh, I can, I call Marion, and whether it's, hey, I'm thinking of a new opportunity, but just as you celebrate new employees coming into your organization, you need to celebrate them as they're departing as well.
Yeah.
Because they're going to remember that too.
Yeah. How experience is, we talk about customer experience, right?
Mhm.
Which is great on the, from a customer, but it's really the employee experience from day one until they leave
That's correct.
what matters all the time.
Right. Because they're going to talk, if you never know, they may be, hey, tell me about that company, Bravo.
Right.
How is it a great place to work? Yes, it is. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, thank you for that. So I know we've talked a little bit about now we have to start going in the descent here. So one of the things that I love to do is do a flip the mic where you get a chance to ask me a question. So what's on your mind?
Yeah. So I'm curious from an aspirational standpoint, what is your hope for leaders decades from now?
Oh, wow. So I think the word that keeps coming up for me is just being genuine, like really thinking in a way that we're here to help, or we're here in this world such a short amount of time. If you really think about it, right? This world is billions of years and the universe is so big, right? And we live on average, what, 80s, increasing maybe 80
Yeah, right.
years, maybe 70 years, right? It is really a short time. So how are we living our lives and how are we leading others? Whether you're leading your family, or you're leading your friends or your employees or organization or whatever that may be, is are we leading with, almost want to say, from the heart, genuinely, right? And balance it with some of the head as well. But what is that impact that we want to make? What is that legacy that we want to create? We all don't have to have legacies in a big way where we're going to be remembered in history books. But even if we just make a difference in one person's life, 2 people, 3 people, 5 people in your life, that's it, right? Even if if it's just one, you've changed somebody's life.
That's right.
And if you're there for them, they may be there with somebody else for somebody else, right? And that's what I've been trying to coin, generational impact.
Yeah.
Because that impact is not just going to be that one to one; it's a one to many.
That's right.
And that is what I would love.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do, and by bringing guests, I'm
Sure.
trying to impact through this podcast, maybe a book in the near future, and others, right? To really lead from the heart, be a kind leader, lead with that empathy, and make sure that we're keeping each other accountable as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic.
Great question. Thank you very much. All right, going into rapid fire question. What's one book every leader should read?
I'm surrounded here in my office by lots of leadership books and organizational culture, but one book that I absolutely love is by Tim Spiker. And the book title is The Only Leaders Worth Following. And his focus within the book, he says 3/4 of the effectiveness as a leader is who you are versus what you do.
Oh, I love it. Who you are versus
what you do. So the who, not the what. So that is a great book for anyone to pick up.
A favorite quote or mantra you live by?
Ooh. So something I have on my whiteboard is something that I look at a lot that try to inspire myself, which is I'm the lighthouse that gives a damn about your journey.
Ooh, that's powerful, Marion. I'm the lighthouse that gives a
damn about your journey.
Yeah. Actually, the lighthouse has come up for me a lot of times in conversations, or I do some meditations too, and being that light, guiding people in the right direction. So I love that you said that. It resonated very well with me.
Yeah.
If you could have coffee with anyone, past or present, who would it be and why?
Great question. I would say, I would love to be able to have coffee with my father again, who passed away 15, years ago. And so that's who I'd like to have coffee with again, too.
How was he with the heart and head mindset? Did he?
Well, I kind of joke because I felt like I grew up, I'm an Army brat, so he was in the Army. So I would say he softened over the years from where he started.
Of course.
But but also I think he was a kind leader, for his folks that he served in the Army as well.
Amazing. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you for sharing. Last one is one word that describes the leader you're still trying to become.
I would say comfortable in your own skin.
Perfect. I do have one last closing question here. So before we wrap up, for the leaders listening today who are running teams, running businesses, or running themselves into the ground to deliver, obviously, right? What's the one thing you want them to carry with them out of this conversation?
I would like them to reach out to a leader that impacted them and share the gratitude that you have for what they taught you and to say thank you.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Gratitude, right? Gratitude puts you in the nice vibrational, energy, right? So with that, I do thank you for your time today, for the great conversation, really reminding me. I love that giving a damn isn't really about, similar to kind leader, it's not about being soft. It isn't sentimental and it isn't optional either, right? It's something that we're choosing over and over again to lead with both head and heart,
right? Where
we can really balance that out, make some great decisions, and impact the people around us. So with that, where can our listeners find you and learn more about Root and Regard?
Yeah, so you can email me directly at marion@rootandregard.com or via LinkedIn.
Excellent. So yeah, definitely encourage folks to reach out. Marion has some great, I really love the Root and Regard. I love that. The name too, right? It resonates very well with me. And, please, for the listeners out there, I definitely encourage you to get to know Marion a little bit more, keep learning more about the kind leader and the framework that's coming out that we're going to be working on. It's super excited. We want to put stuff out there that people can capture and grab, easily learn and start executing and integrating within their lives, within their organizations. So with that, Marion, again, thank you for joining us and sharing your wisdom. And
thank you so much. Wonderful to be here and love what you're doing. It's just a great service to everyone.
You're welcome. To our audience, thank you for listening to the Kind Leader podcast. And remember, be kind, bring value, rise together. Have an amazing day, everybody.